As you know, we use this platform to share stories of resilience. And today I have a very special guest. Hey everybody, it's Sally Allen, your host from the Sally Allen podcast here again. And today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. Her name is Ruby. I met her on social media. I started following her and I saw what she was doing, who she is, and her resiliency. And you know, this podcast is about resiliency. So I invited her today to share a little bit about that. So Ruby, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, Sally, thank you so much for having me here. I love the whole idea of your podcast. Resilience is one of my favorite words. So I think we connected from that second. So thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, it's weird when I do my podcast. It's not often I would meet people for the first time like live. I'm just meeting you for the first time. I have we've never met before, so it's so wonderful to meet you. I know you mentioned that you were from Mexico City. You're a content creator, a social media content creator. So yay, we love content creators. Love your creativity. But you're from Mexico City and you came to Las Vegas 3 years ago?
Yes, it's been 3 years so far, and it's been a whole process. I'm the first member of my family to move out of the country. So it's been a very exciting journey. I honestly love Las Vegas. I feel so welcome here. The community is super supportive, and there's so many opportunities for entrepreneurs in here. So yeah, I'm really happy, but it's been a journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. And one of the reasons why I reached out is that you started this Instagram page with what's it called?
In
In
Vegas,
Vegas.
702.
And what you sought out to do, which was very interesting, is highlighting businesses and entrepreneurs and people in Vegas and what they're doing. And I found that to be such a selfless act to want to
Yes.
showcase people and what they do and lift them up. What made you want to do that?
I feel like this comes first because I saw the necessity and how necessary it is to have a community. For me, being from a different country and came here to build my own family, my own support system, I think the word community is very important. You really need a strong support system around you. Doesn't really matter what you do, we all need other people. So I feel like there's a lot of people that they deserve the spotlight. I feel like I've met people that they're doing so many amazing things for the community, but they're not being showcased what they do out there. So I thought this will be a great opportunity to give them, that shout out that they deserve, and also get to know a little bit more about this same community, right? Who is who, what's their story behind, right? Because I feel like on social media we have content reels of 6 seconds, so you don't really get to know the person that's behind what they're going through. And I feel like that's very important because that's what makes us human beings, and that's how we're connecting with each other, right? Same as how you and me are talking right now.
Yeah, I love it. I love these, I call them these serendipitous connections because I would meet somebody once, they'll be on my podcast, and then we're just friends forever. I love how that happens. But talking about showcasing and highlighting people and community, one of the things you shared right before we started was you struggled with, it's called borderline personality disorder. And that's one of the reasons why I have you on the podcast also, because what I love to do is share people's stories of resilience of different things they struggle with. And this haven't been one thing that came across the podcast yet. So I'd love if you can share that journey with us.
Yeah, so I got diagnosed when I was 17 years old. I had my first suicide attempt, and that's when they diagnosed borderline personality disorder. I was very, very young. So when I first heard that word, it was like so strange to me. I was in a clinic, and what was at that time my therapist was explaining me everything, right? He was using very, easy words for me to go through the whole understanding of what this was. And he basically told me it's like if you had third-degree burns in your skin and you have to go through emotions. But if you touch someone, they're not going to feel anything. But if you touch someone that has a third-degree burns, that person is going to feel it so differently. So I think it's really hard to understand that yourself and others, because in my family, we never talked about all of these things. I think this part of mental health awareness is so important, because this is the thing, we go through so many things and we're not very different from each other. But the fact that we really don't talk about these topics openly makes it even, worse to go through, when in reality many people go through depression, anxiety, and the list goes on.
Yeah. So what are some of the symptoms and sign of borderline personality disorder?
Well, it's just right now I hear a lot the word of empath, right? So what happens is there is a configuration on the chemicals on your brain. So this means you process emotions on a different way that people usually do. What I like to explain this is also you feel a lot, right? Like I go through happiness, I go through all of these emotions, but in a very higher level than most of the people do, right? There's also different varieties. There's not like one specific diagnose that fits everyone, which also makes it very hard to diagnose, because it can be processed as is just like borderline, which is no, bipolar, I'm sorry. So the difference is they go through this states of depression, and then they have this maniac, which is like they're super active and like happy and they have a lot of energy, but that can last about 1 to 3 months. With borderline personality disorder, it goes very fast. I can have one day that I'm like super happy, super excited, and I can have another day that I'm like super sad and depressed, and I'm going through these emotions. Also, it has a lot of instability throughout your relationships and everything that you go through. So what happens with this is once you're being diagnosed, you go through a process of similar to other mental illness. It could be with medication, therapy, and that just has to do for the rest of your life.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say, because I was going to ask you this question, I wanted to understand it. Borderline personality disorder compared to being bipolar is different in the sense of if you struggle with bipolar, you go from one end of the spectrum to the other with your emotions, but it could last for months.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So you could go high end, you could be happy for 4 months, and then when you crash, you come down for 4 months. But you're saying with borderline personality disorder, it could happen, that yo-yo happens from day to day.
Exactly. It can be, it's like the time could be one day to another one, which are like very different. What happens throughout the time with this balance that you have on your chemicals in your brains, right? You need to learn how to regulate them in a different way that, of course, somebody that has all their chemicals right in their brain doesn't have to go through, right? So I think throughout the years, I had to learn this like techniques where you just have to regulate your own emotions and process thoughts on a very different way. Kind of like questioning, what am I feeling right now? Is it true? Is it really like this perspective that I'm having, the reality, or is it something that my mind is going through right now, but it might not be through? So I feel like also learning this ways to communicate on a very effective way helps go through and have like successful relationships or healthy relationships with others.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Do you feel like with borderline personality disorder that it's similar to personality disorder or different personality? What do you call that when people have more than one type of personality? I forgot what it's called.
Yeah.
Lana, what it's called? When you have different personalities. Multi personality.
Multi-personalities.
Yeah. Is it similar to that?
I think it could be, because that's the thing also. Why it's so hard to diagnose. It's not like, oh, I have a headache. It could probably be migraine, and then you just Google it, and then you see all the description, and it might fit.
Right.
It's just, I feel what happens with having multiple personalities is you really develop the whole personality and you tap into it, and then you go back and forward with other kind of personalities. And here you still have the same personality. What's just not the same is your emotions and how you regulate them. So that can affect the way of your behavior per se, but not necessarily of your personality.
Okay.
So I think that will be kind of like the difference, if it makes sense.
Yeah, totally, totally. And how long did it take you to actually work through that? You found out when you were 17. You had thoughts of suicide, and then at 17 you were diagnosed. How long did it take you to figure out? Because you seem to be in a very good place right now. So you work your way to where you are. How long did it take you to do that? And I know I had somebody on the show before, and we talk about thought replacement and replacing your thoughts. You were saying that's what you did.
Yes.
How long did it take you to get there?
I think it's still taking me. You
Okay.
know, I think it's going to take me till the day I die.
Yeah.
I think it's a work in progress. I think it's something I do every day. The only difference is I gather throughout the years more tools. But I feel like I'm still the same person having the same thoughts. The only difference is everything, like the experiences that I've gone through, they gave me this knowledge that I have, and I also have developed resiliency throughout the years, so I can cope with everything that's happening in a different way. I also remember when I got this diagnosis, there was a part where one of my mentors, which was my therapist at the time, told me, why, if everything that you feel right now, that is like the worst that can happen on this diagnosis, you put it in a different aspect, you put it in a different position where it's a superpower, because I'm very sensitive throughout so many things, right? But then also, when I'm working with other people, that makes me more aware of certain situations that normal people, they can tell. It's like, what if you use the times where you're super with a lot of energy? Because when you're on your depressive mode, right, you need to go through, but you don't have the same amount of energy when you're just like on your highs, let's say it that way. So I'm very productive. I'm super creative. I start having like these ideas nonstop. And that's when I sit down and I start creating, and I start like writing down like action plan. So whenever it comes to lows, I can still work on them in a very productive way as well. So I feel like it has been that process of replacing your thoughts. It has been the tools to having a strong system around you to remind you who you are. What are your values? Why are you here? Why are you doing the things that you do?
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. So what I'm hearing you say is that you harness your highs and lows, and you use them as your superpower. So for anybody who's struggling with this and they're listening to this, just think about, how do you use your highs and lows as your superpower? You told me you were an empath.
Yes.
You're empathetic. You feel people's feelings. So when I'm assuming when you're in a low, you probably feels it more because you're more
Yes.
vulnerable.
Yes. Also, I think like throughout certain experiences, one of the things that I've struggled with the most, because when I feel happiness, I feel this like high that I don't think a lot of people get to experience. Like it's a really like high of life.
Yeah.
About the simplest things. I could be, driving on the freeway, and the radio puts a song that I loved, and I get this high, like I'm, having the best time of my life, and everyone is like, oh, it's just a song. But for me, like I'm experiencing this in a very high level. But what happens when it comes to pain? I feel it in a very, very deep way. So one of the things that I had to learn throughout this experience is, how do we embrace pain? Because I learned in a very young age that I can't get away from pain. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to commit suicide, because I can't deal with this. This is too much. I can't. Like, emotions to me, they hurt a lot. I don't know what to do with this. And I was just like, I'm out of here. I don't want this. Yeah. I don't want this human experience. So, but in reality, it's one of the biggest gifts of life, because pain makes you transform into your highest self. That's pain comes into your life and knocks your door at the very exact time that it's telling you it's time to move on. And we have many ways to go through pain. We can avoid feeling the pain. We can try to ignore, distract ourselves, or numb ourselves. And I think I went through all of them. I first of all was like, I don't want this. Then I went through numbing the pain without assistance, with alcohol, with, distracting myself with parties, with, putting my mind away from this. But then it got to the point where there's no way out. The best way to go through pain and really make it in a way to transform or transcend is just sitting down and feeling it.
I love that, because one of the systems I use, I tell people, you got to feel, you got to deal, and then you heal. Because I tell my clients this, I say, when you're going through pain, picture yourself sitting in a tent and embrace your pain. Hug it like a pillow. Because when you sit in a tent is temporary, right? It's not permanent. You're out there, you're camping, you just camp out. And I sometimes say, if you need to take a week to camp out mentally, then take a week. Yes. But sit in that pain, embrace it, just feel it, understand where it's coming from, understand what it's doing to you. And when you finally feel that pain and you've embraced it, and you've like, okay, I understand it now, I understand, then only then you can deal with it. But if you keep pushing it away, you can't deal with it.
You're just postponing something that's it's going to take its time. And also, it's not meant to be there forever. There was a point where I was just like feeling I was gonna feel the same way forever, and that simple thought will kill me. I was just like dying with the thought of, I'm gonna feel this forever.
Yes.
And one of the best like phrases or quotes that I tell myself is, this is gonna pass, this is not forever. In reality, nothing is forever, good or bad.
This too shall pass.
Yes.
This too shall pass.
I'm like, that also, thinking about you're gonna be in a different place, just remember that. So whenever I'm meditating and I have a second where I'm feeling super happy and I'm feeling at peace with myself, I just close my eyes and mentally I go back to the times that I was feeling a lot of pain. And it's like I do travel back in time, and I hug myself and I give that version of myself the love and the peace that I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
And I know that's not going to change what happened, but it's also a reminder for the future that whenever I'm going to go through a difficult situation, I'm always going to have that love, that I'm going to be healed and I'm going to be protected by that version of me.
Yeah, I love that, Ruby, and it's so true, because I look back. I've had a lot of pain in life, and I look back at all those pain, everything I've been through, and it was to teach me something. And you gotta look for what that pain is trying to teach you also, because sometimes it stays there until you find a purpose for the pain. So I've looked back as, okay, that was for that reason, and that was for that reason, and that was for that reason. And you can relate to this probably. When you look back, you say, you know what? I wouldn't want that not to happen to me. I am glad that it did, because it made me who I am today.
Exactly.
Would you say that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm really happy for every part of struggle, for every moment that I also thought of giving up. And I'm very thankful of the things that I get to experience nowadays because I'm so in love with life now that I'm like, I would have missed all of this
Yes.
if I had succeed in the past when I wanted to give up. But I also understand myself, right? I'm patient because when we're teenagers, we don't have a lot of tools. You know, we're just like going out of being infants and we think we're adults, right? We're grown ups, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And we think that the reality that we're living, it's going to last forever and that we're going to stay there forever. And it's not true, right? With time, we develop this superpower of having different perspectives, of having built resiliency, which allows you to say, this is not going to be forever. I'm going to move on from this. And it comes with a lot of growth too.
Yes, I love that. So I wrote down a question here about depression. Does borderline personality disorder, is it a form of depression?
It comes, yes. I feel
Okay.
like you get a lot of states where I've dealt with depression, I could say most of my life in different forms. I used to be overweight. I used to be around 200 pounds. So that was a way, because really, like when you're depressed, you want to take care of yourself. So I think nowadays, like I said, I think I've developed tools and ways to get yourself out of there. I don't think the problem is like to remove depression out of your life, right? I think it's part of life. It's part of what people go through. It's part of the human experience. I think it's more important to say how we cope with depression, how we go through depression. Like you said, it can be taking yourself, recognizing you're going through something and saying, I need time for myself. Or also at the same time, what activities can take me out of this state? How can I get away from this state easily or faster? So I feel like now I have the ability to take myself out of there so I last less time there. I'm not going to say, oh, no, I don't feel it. Of course I do.
Yeah.
Of course I still tap into it. But I know now the ways of saying, okay, let's go for a walk. Let's go to the swimming pool. Let's go for a swim. You know, let's do something that you enjoy. Let's start painting. Let's start dancing. You know, there's always ways for you to take your mental state out of there.
Yeah. And I feel if you're out in nature and if you're moving your body, especially if you're exercising, like you said, whether you're swimming or dancing, you are less prone to go into those dark places.
Exactly. There's also so many things that's why I was highlighting having a strong support system.
Yeah.
You know, people that's really there for you and it's reminding you who you are and bringing a lot of positivity into your life. I feel like there's also many ways of taking care of what you're eating, right? What is your routine? What are you doing? What is the people that you talk to? If you're talking to people that's very negative, that's sick all the time, then that's not going to help you tapping into a different mindset or reality, right? So I feel like those things is something that I've learned also throughout time that I need to make sure I have all of them to have like a healthier life in general.
Yeah, it's a common thread. You know, the last person I was talking to suffered from severe depression, and she was sharing the same thing about removing a lot of people from her life because she needed to surround herself with different personality types and different people. And I think as we grow in life and as we are improving, we leave people behind, and that's okay.
Yes.
We have to be okay with that. So one of the things you would start sharing with me before Lana said, hey guys, talk about this on the podcast, was you fell in love with yourself by doing something very unique via photography. Talk to us about that.
Yes, I love photography. Part of me being super creative is it's a language for me, photography. It's like a way to communicate. And I've struggled with feeling confident on my own skin for a very long time. I feel like as women, we get this programming, this misconception of what feels to be confident in your own skin. So throughout all my experiences that I had, I created a workshop for women, which is a boudoir session. But prior that, we have an exercise. It's 4 hours before getting into the photo shoot, where we share a little bit more about our story. And it's a women's circle. I don't know if you ever been in a women's circle, but it's so healing just by hearing other women's stories, right? It's so empowering. I feel like it's you realize a lot of things, that you're not alone, that we go through this as a group, and we also can heal as a group. And at the end of this workshop, we celebrate. We celebrated with a photo shoot. So we have different backdrops. We have the dressing room, the makeup room. We have a little bit of wine and a charcuterie board. So we're just like celebrating, right? We went through all of this roller coaster of emotions. And we have the Vidora photo shoot, and it's beautiful seeing how women like support each other, and they're like cheerleaders. And by this point, they created the sisterhood as well.
Yeah.
So it's very healing. And then after, when they see their pictures, I love that, because they're like, Ruby, this is not me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is you. And they're like, oh, thank you for making me sexy again. And I'm like, no, this is you and your work. And when you heal this perspective of yourself, and you let yourself see you in a different way, is when you realize how powerful, how beautiful you are. So I really wish all like women go through this experience, because it's very healing and empowering. And it doesn't really matter your age, your size, your nationality. Like, you know, it really doesn't matter. When you embrace yourself and you let yourself feel and go through these emotions and tap into your feminine energy as well, I feel like you really get back to your truest version.
So that has helped you to find yourself and to love yourself again.
Yes.
And what you're talking about, like a boudoir photo shoot with a workshop before, to actually find yourself before the photo shoot.
Yes. I feel like there was a moment where I started like finding this as a way of healing. I did a photo shoot with one of my friends, and it was so shocking to me, because for the first time, I fell in love with myself. I saw this picture, and I was just like amazed by the fact that I let myself be vulnerable enough, and putting myself into the other side of the lens.
Yeah.
And experiencing what it is to just take your mind out of your head and the ideas that you have about yourself. Because this is the thing, we're our worst enemies.
Oh, we are.
I don't have anybody to speaks like me the way I do with myself. And there's no one that's more mean to me
So true.
or a hater than myself. And I can tear myself apart. So when I, stop this mind and I let somebody else take that perspective of me, and I was able to see it, I was just amazed by the results. And I was just like, I want more women to experience this.
Lana, we have to experience boudoir photo shoot.
I'm down. You're already halfway there with your no Brian.
Yeah. I mean, this is sounding. I have another friend who did it, but I didn't. As you were sharing with me now, I realized what she was trying to explain to me. She does the same thing, and I didn't realize what it was until you started sharing. I'm okay. That's what she was talking to me about. Very good.
I think that there's different ways to go through it. I know there's a lot of people that just go really direct to the photo shoot, which is really
I don't think
amazing.
I'd like that. Yeah.
But for me, I thought it was very important to do and tap into those like language codes that we have about ourselves and where are they coming from.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like most of the times we stop a second and start questioning, where is this coming from? And when we realize it's just not me, but a bunch of other women that are having the same thoughts, it's like, wait a second, what's going on? And then we go back to the root of all of this programming, which is actually better because then when you go to the photo shoot, you have a total different experience because of the things that you went through prior the shoot.
Wow, that's really powerful. Can you believe like half hour went by? We were talking and it went by so quickly.
No way.
I know, it just flew by. This was so good. Ruby, I am so glad you decided to, be a guest on this podcast and you are so vulnerable. I just love it so much. Do you want to leave a takeaway for our audience? Is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
I
A
think
takeaway?
you just said something very beautiful, which is when we let ourselves to be vulnerable. And I think that that's when we're being our truest self. When we tap into vulnerability and when we embrace vulnerability, we think that being strong is having this armor and showing this, nobody can affect me. But
Right.
in reality, I think it's quite the opposite. As we are the strongest when we are vulnerable and we let ourselves be seen by others. So thank you so much for giving me that opportunity here.
Yes, I love it. And I totally agree with that. Sometimes we feel that we're being weak when we show, any type of vulnerability, or we're being weak when we Lana's waving at me. She's
It's
trying
like,
to
guys, stop. That's it.
No,
You're so cute.
we're on
It's
the full
okay.
screen.
She's showing off. We're on the full screen. You and me. Thank you, Lana. We love you. We appreciate you. But what was I saying? I'm just in agreement that when you are vulnerable, that's strength. Strength is not putting your armor on and try to show people that you're strong. Being able to share openly and honestly, that's what people relate to. So with that, friends, thank you again for being on our podcast. And with that, it's a wrap.